Welcome to Gavin Games for Friday. What is today? It's a big fucking day in the world of games. February 18th, man. Horizon dropped this morning at, what was it? I don't know. It was like first thing in the morning. You could have downloaded it. And I struggled whether I was going to download it or not. I did not download it. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. But it is good to see you. I have a feeling a lot of people are going to be playing video games this weekend. I have fallen in love with Cyberpunk because of the... well, actually, you know what? I kind of enjoyed it before. I didn't spend much time with it because I knew it was going to get an update a year later, a little bit more than a year later. Here we go. The update dropped the other day, this week. I love it. I'm having a great time with it. We'll talk about that a little bit in just a minute. Obviously, I want to finish Bloodborne, the Old Hunters this weekend before Elden Ring drops next week. I honestly do not know. I mean... It really isn't a problem for gamers because, you know, you have backlogs. You'll get to shit eventually if you care about getting to it eventually in regards to games you want to play, but you don't have time to play because so many are coming out at the same time. However, as a game publisher, I don't know, man. Somebody's going to get hurt really bad this February and next month. Next month's a bloodbath as well. And I don't know which one's going to get slammed the most. I think if you look at Dying Light, Horizon, and Elden Ring, which are really, I know SIFU people kind of throw in there, and there's obviously Total War, Warhammer 3 people throw in there. But the three that really are incredibly expensive titles that have been in development for a very long time, the question becomes, how in the cockadoodie hell are they all going to emerge from this month feeling good about their sales? They have a week between each other for the most part. I don't know if that's enough time, really, to make your mark. I mean, I think Elden Ring's the tricky one. Elden Ring's the weird one. Elden Ring's kind of the Donald Trump of this fucking horse race. And that, I mean, you know, it's got a lot of passion and fans, but the establishment, you know, the Souls games are hits, but they're still niche compared to something like Spider-Man, compared to something like Uncharted, compared to something like God of War. So, as much as I can't wait for Elden Ring, and I imagine a large percentage of the chat can't wait for Elden Ring, and as much as Elden Ring is going to be on all the systems, I kind of wonder about that one. Horizon, I don't know, man. They all have deficiencies and strengths. People who are playing Horizon say that it is phenomenal. The reviews have been amazing. I have very little interest in Horizon. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but that has nothing to do with anything that the Guerrilla team has made. I just don't find myself attracted to the package. It just kind of feels, you know, not really interesting. Frankie Bean says the loud minority votes for Elden Ring. That is possible. But the other thing that's possible, and we'll chat about this too. We got a lot to talk about today, so settle in, motherfuckers. The other possibility is because From Software, when you listen to all of their interviews, has done such a, at least they've made such a big attempt to allow that game to be more user-friendly, maybe they're going to cast a wider net this time, and it could actually connect to a lot of people. Okay. Let us move forward, though. Let us begin talking about the news. Oh, I want to let you know a couple of things. As you know, the voice line is open on the Discord. Call in if you want. You can talk about anything you really want. It's Friday. Fuck it. I don't care. I want to let you know tomorrow is Pot+Popcorn starting at 4:30 or 5 o'clock. I'm not sure which time yet. But this kicks off tomorrow. I want to give you guys... so I did the... Everybody voted on the 8 movies. It was whittled down to 4. The Last Thing Mary Saw, Kung Fu and Titties, Batman Ninja, Death Race 2. Then our Cult of Calypso members and our God of War members, you can join those members if you want. We are spinning the wheel today. You can also join the Diet Soda Soldiers if you want. Tomorrow night's Pot+Popcorn is only for members of those 3 tiers and mods, so hopefully we'll see you there. Regardless, though, Cult of Calypso and up, got to vote. I'm going to refresh the page. Let's see what our 2 movies are tomorrow evening. Tomorrow we will be watching... oh, shit. Kung Fu and Titties is the clear winner. It is going to be a runoff between The Last Thing Mary Saw and Batman Ninja. I'll put a new poll up tonight to have members vote on those two only, and we'll see you back here tomorrow. We'll be watching a double feature of Kung Fu and Titties and either Batman or The Last Thing Mary Saw. Okay, that's what's going on there. Hopefully, we will see some of you guys in the virtual movie theater tomorrow evening. Listen, I want to tell you about some news. I want to talk to you about some news that's happening in our world of games. But last night, I am playing Cyberpunk. It has currently replaced my obsession with Bloodborne. But that is only because, if you know Bloodborne and all the Souls nonsense, you know that, when you die, you lose all of your whatever your currency is. In that game, it's blood echoes. And I like the way I play, because I'm not a great player, I like to level up my character and grind up, and that's the best I can ever do in a game like that. So I had about 350,000, which was about half a day's worth of, quote, work. And I inadvertently stepped into a hole and fell to my death and lost them all. And I couldn't go back and get them because I died. So I've kind of had the wind taken out of my sails a little bit. But anyway, so I'm playing a lot of Cyberpunk. And last night, I was going to put this video up. I still may, but I'll show you this while we're talking. I won't have any sound on it. This is a video I was going to put up last night. And then I'm just like, I'll talk about it on the show, because I kind of want to get people's thoughts on it in real time. So this was me playing Cyberpunk last night. Brian East, I'll get to that, and I will get to the other comment that I just had up on the screen in a second. So this is me last night. I'm playing the game Cyberpunk. I walk into this nightclub that I thought was pretty fucking cool. I still don't think we're at the point in video games where, we're like the rave scene in Blade, right? Where it's just bodies to bodies. I mean, you've had that kind of density of people in like certain Assassin's Creed areas. I've yet to see the sort of cinematic nightclub scene executed in a game to my satisfaction. But this is pretty good, though. It looks good. It sounds good. It's pretty goddamn good. And I'm walking around and I'm doing my missions and all this stuff. And I'm just also just sort of talking to the characters. It's a very immersive game. It is a very, it really puts you in the world, and I love that about this title. And I go into this club, and somewhere about 5 minutes in, I go, I could shoot up this nightclub, right? I go, like, I had this desire, I had this devil on my shoulder going, pull out your shotgun, and have one of those moments that are horrible and awful and tragic that you hear about that happen at times on the news, where you could go in and just start blowing people away in this fucking nightclub. And it's not like you can't go on the city streets in this game or Grand Theft Auto or any of that and do the same thing. Okay? It's nothing that's never been done in a game that I haven't done in a game, but there was something about being in a nightclub and all of the shootings, and there was just a number of things that have happened, at least in America, recently, in the last 5 years, that I was just like, I want to be that guy. I want to be that guy. And I don't really want to be that guy, but it was just this nasty part of my personality. And I don't know, man, I struggled with it. And I ultimately, I realized it was really funny. I decided I wasn't going to do it. I know they're just NPCs. I know they're not real. I know nothing bad was going to happen. But I was just like, it just doesn't feel right. And I don't care if you do it. I'm not going to judge you. And I think we all have these sides in us. And we all have these, wanting to trip over into the dark side. Bacon Magma in the chat says, you're trying to be edgy. I just told you I didn't do it because I felt doing it. I couldn't, there's nothing. If I was trying to be edgy, I would have said I went in there and blew the fuck out of everybody. But I literally was like, you know what? I can't do it. And then I go into the club and I realized, oh, you can't fire your guns in the club anyway. And then I started to feel shitty about it. Then I was like, well, now I want to do it. So I went outside to the club and I was like, I'm going to go into, I'm going to at least shoot the guards. You can't do it. They won't let you do it. But yeah, you can't. Like CR3D says, you can't do it. So even if I could have done it, I wouldn't have, Bacon. So fuck you. ACAB says NPC lives matter. Okay, SM says it's a game. Who the fuck cares? You're missing my point. I'm not, and that may be my fault, and I apologize. I'm not suggesting that it's not a game. I'm aware it's a game. I'm aware these people don't have real feelings and families and lives, and I'm not worried that it's Free Guy. And even if it was Free Guy, these guys would come back to life, so no harm, no foul. It wasn't that, and I don't know if it was the graphics or the sound. I don't know what it was, but the more, and maybe it's an age thing, but the more I play, the older I get, the more realistic the graphics get. I struggle to become, I struggle being that cruel. Same thing happened to me in Days Gone. There were some civilians that were tied up on a bridge that were about to be executed, and I saved the bad guys, or I killed the bad guys and saved them. But I was like, God, I could walk up and shoot him in the head. I could totally fucking shoot him in the head. And I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. Random Moose Brain says, and Fallout New Vegas, I killed everyone and ate people from time to time. I should talk to a therapist and say, hey, is it better if I have those feelings in a game to get it out? Yeah, Top Gun Zero says, remember Call of Duty's airport scene, the no Russian scene, where you go in there, you can mow down everybody, and you're supposed to. I think I was younger, so maybe it's just an age thing. Back then, I didn't mind doing it. If you want a game that is all about moral dilemma, says Morgan, over mass murder, try Drakengard 1. I don't want a game. Like I said, I chose not to do it. Caveman says, I think it's about not wanting to see yourself in that light. You know, I don't know about that, man. Because I do believe psychologically that we all have that inside of us. We all have that, not ability that we would do it, but we all want to play in the darkness. And I like making games and in content about the darkness. It just feels to me that maybe because it's so close to the headlines these days, I'm choosing not to. Brian E. says, Downfall Media, which is good Sir Blake Nesbitt. Good to see you, sir. Let me know if you want me to change your title up there. Did you see that people will randomly commit suicide in the streets of Cyberpunk since the latest update? I did not. But, again, people were like, see, you want to censor that? I don't want to censor that. I think Sony, if they want to be consistent, I made a video saying it's weird they would censor Martha is Dead, which I also want to play next week, but they wouldn't censor that. Henry and Spaz say the no Russian mission of Call of Duty, you could actually shoot the civilians, but you didn't have to. I thought that was the whole idea. You go into the airport and you're trying to disguise yourself as not Russian terrorists, so it gets blamed on someone else. So you do need to shoot the thing up. But it's been a long time, so I believe it. People jump from buildings in Cyberpunk. Okay, you know what's interesting? Somebody in the chat, I think it was, Eric's saying, how does the shooting feel in Cyberpunk? Good. It feels good. I think it's one of those things where you have to get used to the fact that it is to some extent an RPG, and so I've seen some people online going, the aiming's terrible. It's like, well, it can be, but a lot of that also has to do with where you're putting your your perks and your upgrades and all that stuff. So your aiming is bad sometimes, but it gets better by the nature of how the game is supposed to be. But I've enjoyed playing the guns. Somebody said, I think it was Morgan, said, why in the world are you even playing Cyberpunk? This is what Morgan says. Why are you wasting time on Cyberpunk when you have access to Horizon? No idea. The game just isn't good. It's a wise Grand Theft Auto and a piss poor RPG. I don't know what a wise Grand Theft Auto is. Well, here's the two things I'll tell you. Okay, I'm not wasting my time. The strongest point of Cyberpunk to me is the sense of immersion. It feels like I'm really in that world, and I have the benefit of I like that world. It's depressing at parts, and I'll get out, but I'm a kid of the 80s. I grew up when Cyberpunk was first a thing, and so to be able to be in a world that is that well executed in a first-person perspective. I know The Ascent is a better representation of classic Cyberpunk, but in terms of being in the world, feeling like you actually exist in the space, that's probably my biggest enjoyment of it. And then the other part is, I think so far I really like all the characters. The voice performances are good, the animation's good, the visuals are good, and so it really is. I'm on this story. I'm bought in, so I'm enjoying it. As for Horizon, Horizon is just. There's nothing bad I will say about Horizon, because it's very clear it is a wonderful game. People are enjoying it and all of that, and the graphics look great, on and on and on. But, it just, for some reason, we all have our preferences. I have absolutely no interest in that world, that character, that story. I watched about 20 minutes of the opening, and I think also maybe I'm just burnt out on it, because there is a real similar thread, at least I feel. I haven't played it, but from watching, that runs through Ghost of Tsushima and specifically Last of Us, the new God of War, a little bit of Days Gone, and certainly this new Horizon, which is everything is so earnestly serious. Like, to hear Aloy, it's like, the land is dying. It's just, what will we do? It's just, everything is so... and it almost feels like Sony first party, which I love a lot of their stuff, including Bloodborne, which I'm obsessed with. It feels like Sony first party, though. There is a group of games that come out, and other than Spider-Man and Miles Morales and Ratchet, which I adored, all of them. I loved God of War. I love Ghost, and Days Gone. But I think I've OD'd on this, taking it so serious. It just feels a little too... I'm our last hope, and we're not a baby's game. We're big boy entertainment now, and we're going to show you, because we're going to have these scenes that are subtle, and it's just, I don't know. It just doesn't work for me. But I'm sure it's great. I know it's great. There's no doubt it's great from an execution standpoint. Yeah, Brian says, agree to disagree. That intro is just Aloy's starting narrative. There's a lot of open world not in that intro. Oh, yeah, you don't have to defend that game. That game doesn't need anyone defending it. The reviews are off the charts. It looks phenomenal. One of the prettiest fucking games I've ever seen. It's not for me. It's not for me, at least at the moment. Yes, I'll play Ragnarok Day 1, Wavemaster, because I loved the last God of War. It was fucking awesome. I don't know, Neto says, how deep Cyberpunk is in political departments, but it looks like it's trying to say something more about capitalism than other games. I haven't dealt with that yet. SM says, have you got to the awful Fight Club missions? I have not yet gotten to any missions in Cyberpunk that force you to do the Fight Club. I keep getting messages on my phone or whatever, the hollow whatever, saying, hey, this guy wants me to fight, but, I'm not interested in doing that right now. So we'll see. Okay, there is actually the last bit of Cyberpunk news. We're not going to talk about this all day, but I want to tell you, Rocker Matt wants to send me some games on Steam. I appreciate that, buddy. I'm on Steam all day, but what is your name on Steam? Because I don't think I've gotten a friend request from you. So the last thing I'll say about Cyberpunk is there was an article that came out today by Sissy Jiang, I don't know how to say her last name. The headline is, after Cyberpunk 2077's big updates, devs say it's an RPG, but fans differ. I just thought it was interesting for a couple of reasons. One is, I had no idea, like when I first played it, like last night I'm doing body augmentations on my character. And I'm enjoying it. I thought it was really fucking cool. But apparently the game didn't launch with that. So I can understand why that, the company who made it, CD, would say, oh, no, that's a big way towards pushing this game towards RPG. There's really big skill trees, really detailed, a lot of visual ability in the character customizer. So I don't know why people are feeling. I had one guy online tell me, well, it's boring because after you do your missions and side quest, what else is there to do? And I'm like, well, like he was saying that like it was a negative. And I'm like, well, what do you do in other games? You do the side quests and the missions. And it sounded like he was like, well, yeah, but I want to go play poker and I want to do this. And, and I'm just like, I get that. I get that some games allow that. I don't know, man. When like Witcher 3 had like that card game Gwent, I sat down at the beginning in the bar and I played it for about 5 minutes. I'm like, okay, great, whatever. Like, it didn't add anything. It actually was a distraction to me getting, my character built out. Eternal says Cyberpunk is more RPG than shooter. I agree, simply because the shooting itself is very clearly tied to those numbers. Hello, Donald. That's what I was hoping for, says Neto. I dropped the game back when it launched. That's what I hoped for. You dropped it when it launched. Yeah, I mean, I guess a lot of people really wanted that. I don't know. I don't need any of that stuff, but I mean, Morgan says the skill trees in Cyber give you percent increases. Absolutely boring. The augmentation was more interesting. Yeah, I mean, look, it's not everybody. It's a polarizing game. There's no doubt. But so far, I will tell you, I am very much enjoying it. I'm digging it a great deal. As for Horizon, I don't think you're wrong, Onion Knight. I like Ashley Birch. I like a lot of the work that she's done. She is the lead voice actress in that game. She is Aloy, and Onion Knight says Aloy's voice performance sucks. I wouldn't say it sucks, but I agree with what I've heard so far, which is monotone, whispering. It does feel, I think that's what adds to it. It's just this over seriousness, and maybe it's not. Maybe, like people are saying, it doesn't really go down that road. She can be sarcastic and fun and all that shit. So, we'll see. Eddie T, thank you, buddy. Eddie T's been a Big Bad member for goddamn, sir. Thank you so much for 17 months. He says, hey, you think Sony will ever have their first-party studios make an RPG? I miss games like Legend of Dragoon. That's a tough one, because just how the shooter after Modern Warfare really, every game got the skill trees for the most part. Every big game gets the skill trees and the crafting and the leveling up and putting different points in different places to change the way your game plays. At that point, it becomes the question of how do you define an RPG? Is the Ascent an RPG? Are you just talking about a perspective shift? Is it if it's top down? Or do you mean turn-based? Or do you mean, I'm not sure what you mean, but if you're saying, do I think Sony will ever make like a Tales style game again, or like Wild Arms, or I'm trying to think the first one. I was there when Seth Luizzi of SOCOM fame worked on the translation of, it was like a West, had West in the name. It was the PS1's first RPG, or one of the first RPGs. But I don't imagine them going back. But I mean, other companies are doing it all over the place. But Sony, I mean, they seem right now to be rolling these dice on these big fucking budgets. So it's a good point. Zaf says CD Projekt Red made it clear that it wasn't a shooter, meaning Cyberpunk. The Witcher was an RPG, so people should have expected it. Problem is, FPS games are usually just shooters. There have been a number of games like that. KOTOR was one for me. That Mass Effect is another one where it presents as something that it's not, which is not its fault. It's just audience expectations, and if you don't know going in what it is, it can be confusing why my bullets aren't hitting. Or I'm like, I just headshotted that motherfucker with a shotgun and he got back up. That doesn't make any sense. Well, it does make sense at an RPG level. It makes zero sense at a presentation shooter level. PlayStation Gamer says old school RPGs are a dying breed. I don't agree with that. I don't think that's accurate. I think there's a lot of places, PlayStation Gamer, to find old school RPGs. You just don't find them coming from First and a lot of major third parties. But you can find them if you play on Steam or Itch or any place, really. Okay, by RPG, Brian says, I mean, huge world maps, character loadouts, turn-based fighting. I don't see Sony going down that road. No, I don't. But I don't think it's dead. I just don't think Sony's going down that road. Okay. I'll tell you one more thing real quick I'm not going to talk about Cyberpunk, but I do want to talk about, I had this guy, JMHT, on my Twitter. He was tweeting me. He's upset with Cyberpunk. He doesn't like it. He thinks that CD Projekt Red should still be in the doghouse for all the shit they put gamers through. And I think a lot of people agree with him. But what he said got me thinking. He said, we, the players, should not have been put in the position of bug testing the game. Sure, I agree. And I hope, however, vainly, that the people who needed to learn lessons from this learn those lessons. I try not to be cynical on that last point. The reason, what's interesting about this, though, is that let's say Cyberpunk comes out I mean, it did, and they took a year to get it quote right. And now, let's say it becomes, I mean, it's already a massive hit, right? I was staggered to learn that it is one of the best-selling RPGs of all time. But it's already a massive hit. But let's say it quadruples. Now it becomes the next big thing, or it doubles its sales, right? Same thing with Dying Light 2. Same thing with Battlefield. Same thing with Rainbow Six. Ultimately, it's not only the question of having to train the companies in, we won't buy this shit if it launches, buggy, and the reviews say so. And we won't pre-order ever, because pre-ordering is madness, I think, but whatever. But it's also that ultimately, now, think about this. If you're a new team, not a new team, but let's say you're Sony, and you want to make an open world RPG like Cyberpunk, your own take on Cyberpunk. Well, the bar, in terms of at least the environment, the fidelity, all that stuff of the world, is now raised on a title that really, like your competition has an advantage in that they had enough money, and Sony does too, but to survive a totally botched launch. And so now what you're comparing your launch IP to, of your RPG, is an RPG out in the world that launched way too early and had over a year and many millions of more dollars put into it to arrive at the place where it currently is. So it's almost that these games that get second leases on life, not just from the publishers but the gamers, end up raising the bar to a level that audience expectations go to a place where you have no choice but to start releasing games like that. It's like, release it, it's good enough, we have a year. Because otherwise, you're basically asking to increase your budget meaningfully just to launch something that's comparable to a game that's already been out for 3 years. It's very fucking weird, man. It's very fucking weird. Did Jason Schreier say Cyberpunk flopped? I don't know what he said. I don't really pay much attention to the guy, but I can tell you from reading, if you go Google it, when I was researching talking about Cyberpunk last week, I was very surprised to learn that its concurrent rate on Steam is one of the highest ever, but that was when it launched because there was excitement, but also that sales-wise, it is one of the best-selling RPGs ever. So, I know they've sold over 14 million copies. Last of Us 2 flopped commercially, but Naughty Dog has survived. I don't think Last of Us 2 flopped commercially. I really don't think you have the data for that Top Gun Zero. I think it certainly didn't flop. Whether it was as big of a hit as Last of Us 1, when you take into account a variety of different factors because it launched on different hardware, this, that, and the other, I couldn't tell you because they haven't been very forthcoming with those numbers. We are the minority in the case of Cyberpunk, says Ray Ed. We raged about the bugs. Majority of people who bought the game have no idea or didn't care. I don't know about that, Ray. The reason I don't know about that is because there's a lot of games that the vocal minority yells about, but Sony doesn't take them off the PSN, and Microsoft doesn't put up a disclaimer saying, hey, before you buy this game, warning. Right? So, I mean, the fact that Sony did that, which is cutting money from them, I think goes a long way to suggesting that there was smoke and fire in this case. So, I don't know if I would agree with you. Well, yeah, Brian E. says The Last of Us 2 sold 4 million first 3 days. It's definitely not a flop. Well, it's definitely not a flop, but they haven't really released numbers since then, right? And so in that, I continue to think maybe it underperformed. The PlayStation, yeah, you can't go off that. The Last of Us 2 sold 4 million in 3 days. That's a hit. I'll give you a quick story very briefly. When I was very much into movies. I wanted to make movies when I was a kid and a teenager. And, I followed the box office religiously. And the movie Warren Beatty's Dick Tracy came out. It came out a few years after Batman, the Tim Burton Batman, where everybody was like, oh my God, the comic book movie. It's the biggest thing. Let's all make comic book movies. And it opened over the weekend, either in its first weekend or its first week, it made $100 million. But I had seen the movie, And I was like, really? Dick fucking Tracy? It's cool, but what? And it turns out that's when I realized that a lot of stuff, that opening week or month for a movie or a game is marketing. It's only after the opening weekend box office for movies and after the opening month of NPDs for games that you can really step back and go, what kind of legs does this thing have? So just because The Last of Us 2 was a mega launch at 4 million copies over 3 days really means very little. First off, the game probably had to sell many more copies than that to break even. And more importantly than that, if it only tripled its sell-through, that's 12 million copies. That's really not a lot given the pedigree of the first title and that studio and what they probably spent on it. So I think you got to be careful when you're cherry picking the data. There's a reason maybe Sony only told you those numbers, but haven't released any other numbers. They intentionally pick and choose, as they should. It's PR's job, what information they want in order to make the company look as good as it can. I still believe Sony cut Cyberpunk from the PS Store, says Brian, after Cyberpunk pointed gamers to Sony for a refund without notifying Sony. Either way, though, if Cyberpunk, if CD Projekt Red said, go get a refund from Sony, and they're making that public, which they did, if I remember, it's still acknowledging this game is a problem. Anyway, whatever. There you go. Agree to disagree with whatever. I enjoy it. I fucking enjoy it. I think it's a great fucking game. I'm having a great time. Well, yeah, that's true. Mad Joe says, you want a real flop? A flop is Balan Wonderland, or a flop is Drawn to Death. It's absolutely true. All right, let us move forward with our day. I want to tell you something. I want to talk about how cynical I can be. And I know this is a very light, fluffy thing I'm going to say. I'm not here to piss in your cornflakes. I just want to tell you, as we know, Horizon launched. And if you're listening to the podcast and you're not watching the screen, what's up on the screen right now is a GIF of Aloy and two of her cohorts. I don't know the story. You know how Sony, a lot of people do this now. They'll take their 3D models and somehow map them onto 2D GIFs of doing things. I fucking hate it. This isn't a story. There's no breaking news. I just fucking hate it. It's stupid. As the kids like to say, it's cringe. Okay? It's dumb. There's nothing fun about it. It just makes the characters look horrible and dumb and stupid. Okay, so I've seen him with God of War. That Kratos dancing with a birthday cake on his fucking hat or a birthday hat on his fucking head. Fucking hate it. Hate it with all my goddamn... and I don't know why they keep doing it. This is from Guerrilla. Who the fuck looks at this and says, yeah, that's how we want to portray our fucking characters? I mean, I guess a lot of people would say, oh, Jaffe, you're fucking cynical. Can't you just have fun? Yeah, Morgan says, I think it's cute. Right. There are a lot of people, Morgan, who clearly agree with you. Right? Just like dancing. I think characters having dance moves in MMOs is stupid and cringy and gross. Diego says this is not oriented to people your age. Yeah, I can't imagine how many people follow Guerrilla Software that are like 12. But I guess assume that's possible. Yeah, I hate Kratos Fortnite dancing. I think it's terrible. I think it's fucking terrible. Top Gun Zero, I don't doubt why they do it. Top Gun Zero says they do it because it trends in social media, which helps the brand. I know why they do it. I just hate it. Let's move on. I'm just letting you know I hate it. Stop doing it. You believe this story? Horizon Forbidden West creative director attributes game delay to avoiding crunch at the studio. Again, I'm in a bit of a cynical mood right now, and I'll acknowledge that. I will acknowledge I'm kind of in a bit of a cynical fucking mood today. I don't know why. Sometimes you wake up on the wrong side of the cynical bed. Diego says, look, I'm 18 years old. This is dumb. Yeah, you're talking about the dancing. It's totally stupid. Uwu says, honestly, I like it. It's not taking itself too seriously. Yeah, I know. But imagine... imagine what's a real serious fucking movie or TV show. Imagine Ozark or something, and it's like, and the people who make Ozark tweeted Jason Bateman and whoever else, who the main Laura Linney, doing dabs. Come on, it takes the brand that they've worked so hard to establish, and it makes it stupid. Makes it stupid. Oh, fuck you, Saul Goodman. Go fuck yourself. You just hate PlayStation for... Go fuck yourself, you moron. You fucking... I'm so tired of that narrative. I don't know, man. I don't know what to tell you. What game have I been playing obsessively lately? It's a PlayStation first-party game. It's called Bloodborne. You may have heard of it. What game did I have? My favorite games of last year. Oh, yeah. Hang on. I put it on the wrong screen. Sorry, fellas. Ghost Tsushima. Returnal. Fuck you, motherfucker. Fuck you, motherfucker. Motherfucking piece of shit. Telling me you hate on Sony. I'm a grown-ass fucking man with a beard that looks like Santa Claus. You think I give a fuck? I call him like I see him. And right now what I see is that gifs for fucking morons. Sophie's Choice dance memes. Right, exactly. It would be like if Sophie's Choice, the movie, came out and there's Meryl Streep with two of her kids dabbing. One of the kids she gave up to the Nazis. Fucking moron. Okay, listen. Horizon Forbidden West director attributes game delay to avoiding crunch at the studio. The director said that that's part of the reason for the delay. I don't really believe you. I mean, I believe you a little bit, but really, come on, man. This is PR. Forbidden West might have released at the end of last year, but then we might have had to work overtime. That also played a part in the decision. I'm sure it played a small part. A bigger part was probably, holy shit, we can't sell enough hardware, and we're already doing fine with our launch titles. Every time we get hardware out, Miles Morales and Ratchet, but specifically Miles is selling more than we ever anticipated because the attach rate is bananas. So we would rather you guys come out a little bit later anyway if you need some more time. And hey, it'll help alleviate crunch and maybe you can spin that a little bit to the team. Fine. But I'm sorry. I just, and maybe I was in the industry for too long and maybe I should just, take all this stuff with open arms. Look, I've talked to a very big Sony studio before and they have told me how they avoid crunch. And I believe the guy. Like, I know this individual, and he reached out and said, well, here's how we do it. I'm like, oh, shit, okay, cool. So there are some studios that have techniques down to avoid crunch. But I've never heard of a Sony studio going, we're not going to ship on time because we'll have to crunch. Come on. I mean, maybe. I told you I'm cynical today. But it just sounds weird. Here's a quote. We are very aware of the disadvantages of crunching, so we take that into account and do a lot of our planning. Sure you do. Of course, we all do when we were working in games, but that's a different point. To give an example, at Christmas, we said that there would be no work and that everyone could just have a 2-week vacation. The company was closed. You couldn't even go there to work. Great. But that was a side effect, probably a benefit to the fact that you couldn't get enough hardware in the channel, and so it didn't make sense to put the game out at your scheduled date anyway. Come on now, you know that's true. But here's some good news, some positive news to offset the negative for that prick in the chat who thinks I'm anti-PlayStation. You idiot. After kicking off today's PlayStation, also today this is really great. I think this is great. PlayStation's Plant and Play initiative, which encourages players to do good while gaming. For each person who plays Horizon Forbidden West and collects the Reach the Daunt trophy until March 25th, PlayStation plants a tree in collaboration with the Arbor Day Foundation. That's a really nice bit of promotion, and it also helps out the world. I think it's great. Related, here's something else that's great. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm missing something. I don't remember there ever being a Lego set based on PlayStation. Am I wrong? Was there never a PlayStation Lego set? But this is great. If this is the shape of things to come, I'm excited. Listen to this. This is from Games Radar. If you can't get enough of Alloy and the machines, we also have good news on the yellow brick variety. Announced just a few days ago, Lego is releasing a Horizon Forbidden West set, which includes a tall neck build of the machine dinosaur and adorable Alloy minifigure. The set will cost $80. Comes out in May. So hey man, if Sony's going down the road of suddenly creating Legos for their properties, fuck yeah, you goddamn right. I want some fucking Legos of the Twisted Metal and the God of War and the hell, I'd even get some. I want a Ratchet, man. I want a Ratchet. fucking Lego set. That's some good people right there is what that is. Brian King says, I really love to tune into this anti-PlayStation hate train of a stream whenever I can. Fuck you, Brian King. Aren't you busy being banned from NeoGAF, you piece of shit? You know good and well I have love for PlayStation. I'm so tired of this bull. I want you to think about how dumb some of these fuckers are in this chat. I want you to think about how goddamn dumb. It's like, I can't criticize anything or I have hate on PlayStation. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Random Moose Brain's been a member for 17 goddamn months. Thank you, sir. He says, have your Diet Coke, Jaffe. I will. Thank you for your generous support of the stream. I appreciate it. Oh, that's good people. All right. Let's move on to news stories. We need news stories. Oh, that's a good idea. Realism says, I want a Silent Hill Lego set. Diego says, don't give Jaffe the Lego female Ratchet. You mean Rivet. That's my girlfriend. Armin says, with Arms Wide Open by Creed. I like that song. People make fun of Nickelback. They make fun of Creed. I just heard the news today. That's a great fucking song about when he heard he was going to be a dad. What the fuck is wrong with you? Jaffe thinks Aloy is too serious. I don't care necessarily. I don't care necessarily for that property. Okay? That's all I'm saying. I love a lot of the PlayStation properties. Brian King says, I love you, Scott Jaffe. I don't care how you feel about PlayStation one way or the other. Thanks for being you. You're welcome, sir, and thank you for being you. I love passion, sir, whether it's agreeing or not agreeing. What I don't like is ignorance. Speaking of ignorant, actually, I should say, speaking of the anti-ignorant, here's one of the smartest people we have in our chat. Jojo D has been a member for 17 months. Here's what he says. Oh my God, Jaffe. I am gone for a few weeks and suddenly there are some incredible new subscribers. Do they know about Pot+Popcorn and Game Night? I don't know. We always have we always have a relatively low turnout for Pot+Popcorn, but I love doing it. It's a great deal of fun. I always look forward to it. But yes, I've let them know, Joe, and I appreciate you letting them know again. More importantly, Joe, I appreciate all of the great support and generosity you give to this stream on social media and actually here. You are salt of the earth, good sir. Van says, Jaffe, do you like Natalie Merchant? Natalie Merchant of 10,000 Maniacs, who says, I'm not saying... Oh, what's that fucking song? Jezebel. That's a great fucking song. Yeah, I like Natalie Merchant. Okay. I love the video where he climbs on the hill and spreads his arm wide like he's Jesus. You're talking about Creed? You know what? Whatever. Okay. Flamour says, Horizon is one of the most aesthetically pleasing PS IPs, but if people aren't into the story, I can understand. There's nothing bad about it. Why can't I just say to some people, I don't like it. There's something that doesn't appeal to me. I'm not knocking it. It's brilliant. All right, let's move on. Hey, good news for some folks. Good news. For some folks, including me, I'm excited about this. There's a subtle hint, according to Games Radar. Again, they're a good site these days. Put it up right here. The brand new SIFU. No, I don't know if this is true. They don't know if this is true, but somebody has spotted something. The SIFU game might be coming to PsPlus. What that means is if you subscribe to PsPlus, then you could be getting this game for, quote, free. At first spotted by Tech Radar, says the article, if you own SIFU and log into your PlayStation account right now, a small PlayStation Plus symbol appears next to the game's listing. This applies to both the PS4 and the PS5 version of the game, and it's the same symbol that you'll find next to games that have definitely been included with the PlayStation Plus. The article goes on, here's what it says. It is rare for such a recent release to find its way onto PS Plus, with the service often snagging desirable games after a year or over a year after the launch. But SIFU also did feature prominently in Sony's PS showcases, helping to add some legitimacy to the fact that it may be landing on PlayStation Plus soon, which I think that would be fantastic, because currently right now I'm planning on buying SIFU on the Epic Game Store just so I can return it, because I have a feeling it's going to be way too fucking hard for me and I won't enjoy it. Nine Live says SIFU only sold 500,000 copies. It's a shame. How do you know that? Where did that data come from? PlayStation Gamer says I could see that happening and maybe Little Devil Inside. Yeah, I don't know what the gameplay is for Little Devil Inside, but everything they've shown in terms of the world is fucking fan-goddamn-tastic looking. Jaffe says Vitaphone, don't know if it was covered yet. HBO The Last of Us got pushed till 2023, so the remake obviously will be 2023. Wonder if the delay is because of the game or the show. Oh, interesting. I have no idea. I didn't know it got pushed. I just heard that it was announced it would be out in 2023. I wasn't aware that they had already announced it was a 2022 show. SIFU has one of the best combat I've played in my life, says Neto Barnes. Yeah, I mean, I understand. But it's really hard. In fact, let me jump ahead to this. I want to show you, because I was going to talk about this as it relates to some other games, but this was somebody sent me this on Twitter, not Twitter, on a comment, and I want to read it to you. This is a screenshot, screen grab. It's actually a good point. Somebody says, this is why it sold 500,000, says Brian, in 48 hours. And that's, somebody in the chat was saying, this is why we have cross-gen and multi-platform. Because, you know, it's outselling Returnal, says Top Gun Zero. That's why we have cross-gen, yeah. But, I mean, that's pretty great for a totally weird niche indie title. But this guy writes, because I was talking about the onboarding in Bloodborne being not great. Same thing with Metroid Dread. He says, I'm curious about something. You've said in the past when talking about the super rich that when is enough money enough, like Bobby Kotick and things like that. But when a game isn't doing everything it can to be more commercially successful, you see that as a negative. I'm sure your studio head background and how close you were to the epicenter of PlayStation has colored your opinion. But as a player, why is a successful game not good enough? Are they turning enough of a profit to pay their people and make more games? If Elden Ring does what you want and sells better, will that mean the game is actually better? What about all the people that push the cart to this point? Is it just thanks for the help, now go fuck yourself? This is largely how I see the current landscape of gaming. So there's actually two things I want to respond to on this. Let me get to the quickest response first, which is is it just thanks for all the help, now go fuck yourself? This is sort of a psychological state that people have had forever. I have to imagine it's human nature. I first picked it up when I was a teenager, and I was like, why are these people so mad that this band that they loved for 5 years and no one really knew about suddenly are big and now they're pissed off? Look, you know, nobody wants to create art or entertainment for a small audience. They don't want to sacrifice their art necessarily. Some people do, but they don't want to create art for a small audience if they can still maintain their art. The idea that because their art, whether it's a song, a book, a movie, a game, has expanded to a bigger audience now, and yeah, they've maybe made some adjustments to allow for that, it's not telling the people who loved what it was before to go fuck themselves. It's that I don't think, even if Elden Ring does have an easier onboarding process, they're not telling you to fuck yourself. But that leads into the first part of the question, which is when is, you know, why is it important if a game is more commercially successful? I have never ever said, the quick answer is it's a balance, okay? I have never said that Bloodborne needed difficulty sliders, okay? Even though I know it might do better. I don't know. But it would certainly be an easier game to get into. I have never said that Returnal needs more checkpoints, although it does. I support the vision of the creators always, okay? Even if I don't particularly like it. But in the case of certain games, like Metroid Dread, like Bloodborne, there are things that can be done, in my opinion, it's all subjective, that do not deviate or harm the vision of the creator. And in doing so, it opens the door to more people to enjoy the product. Whether that is an ego stroke for the developer or simply more likely a bigger paycheck for the developer that allows them to continue to create without interference from publishers or market forces that they don't agree with, is a good thing. Okay, but I don't think if somebody came to Miyazaki and said, hey, if you learn from Bloodborne and put difficulty sliders in, you'll sell 5 million more copies. And Miyazaki's like, no, I don't want to do it. But he does it just to make more money. I've never said anything like that. Okay. In fact, the reason the fascinating thing I learned about Miyazaki, was that the Elden Ring beta, or whatever they called it, the online trial, it was one of the first times he said he actually looked at playtest data. He said, usually the team keeps that from me. I don't like to see it. It makes me nervous. Something like that, he said. And so, for all we know, a lot of this shit that you guys, look, a lot of this shit that you guys are saying you adore and love may have been accidental at first. I mean, I'm not saying he didn't want it to be hard and punishing and all that stuff and skill-based. Of course he did. He said that. But to the extent that it may have limited their audience, I don't know, because he and the producer of Elden seem to be talking up the value of it's still challenging, it's still hard, it's still punishing, but we're going to let you in a little bit easier so we don't push as many people away. I don't think that's a bad thing. I'll tell you something. You would be surprised, I think, by how many times the things people love in a game were never even intended. One of the reasons that a group of hardcore fans of Twisted Metal hated Twisted Metal 2012, is they loved Black. They loved a lot of the shit you could do in Twisted Metal Black. Things that they said you could do. I'll take them at their word that they could dodge bullets and missiles beyond just semi getting lucky. But they were convinced that there was a lot of depth there that we certainly never put in. So when we went around to make the next one and they played it, they're like, well, where's this? Where's that? And we're like, do we ever have that? They're like, oh, that's in Black. I'm like, well, if it's in Black, it was an accident. We certainly didn't mean to do that, but I'm sorry, Christian says, in my opinion, the lack of passion on the part of game devs is a major factor in the failure of sales these latest games. Miyazaki is an exception. Give me an example of a game that you feel fits what you've just described, Christian. What is a game that has failed that you feel it's failed because of lack of passion? I would be curious about that. Okay, let's move on while we're waiting for Christian to respond to our question. Listen to this. Listen to this. Man, that's not a good story. Do we care about that? You guys want to hear about Call of Duty cheating? I only bring this up. I just think it's kind of interesting. Call of Duty has rolled out a new anti-cheater tech. The latest, this is, again, Games Radar. On a roll with Jaffe. The latest Warzone anti-cheat update on Call of Duty noted that the implementation of the Ricochet kernel level driver, I don't fucking know, had helped drop cheating to an all-time low over winter. A new tool called Damage Shield should help mitigate the effects of cheaters in Call of Duty Warzone while gathering more data. So this is interesting. It says if a server detects a player is actively tampering, it disables their ability, the shooter's ability, to inflict critical damage on the fly. No matter how magnetically drawn their crosshairs might be to your head, it won't score increased damage. And they're saying the reason they're not turning off the damage entirely or kicking the player entirely if they detect it is because they think once they can identify who these people are, then they can go out and actually start spying on them and tagging them and going, what are the techniques that they use that we haven't even thought of that we can then write code for to combat. So I do think that ongoing problem and the need to solve that ongoing problem is an interesting one. I don't know if it should always be punishment. I sometimes wonder if there is any way to reward those who give up their, I mean, not that they don't already have your IP, but give up their name or agree that if you are caught cheating, this happens or that happens, and then you get new skins and weapons and a couple of new levels, or some reward for those that will incentivize people not to. Or it just, I don't know, man. I think obviously cheaters are bad, no shit, Jaffe, but it's just, it's so, I don't know, it's so fucking gross. But anyway, I thought that was cool. I thought that's cool what they're doing. Okay. Let's talk about Sony's intellectual property. The name of this stream is called something along the lines of what are the strongest intellectual properties that Sony has, okay? To lead into that, let's talk about the Uncharted movie. The Uncharted movie is currently right now sitting at 39% on Rotten Tomatoes. It was at 50, and then it came out today in America. I'm sure some of you have seen it. And it's dropped down to 39%. What's interesting about this, not incentivize cheating, incentivize playing fairly, Devon. I'm not saying you incentivize the cheating. 39%. What's interesting, though, is obviously the critics are not happy, but if you read some of the box office early reporting, they're basically saying that it's on track to do pretty fucking good for what it is. It grossed basically $4 million last night in previews. That's more than Sonic grossed, more than Kingsman Secret Service grossed, more than Kong Skull Island grossed. They think that the movie is going to end up around $30 to $40 million over the 4-day President's Weekend. Tomb Raider, which is the nearest comparison I could find, did $23 million over the weekend, but they didn't have the extra holiday weekend. But still, so all the box office reporting is kind of saying it could go higher. If it goes higher, it could become a franchise. That's pretty cool, blah, blah, blah. So the audience seems to be down with it. According to this, it says critics on Rotten Tomatoes, this is Deadline, have thumbed down Uncharted at 39%, but it's not a movie for them. It's a pure, breezy, popcorn, fun film. If all goes well for Sony, meaning that if they go beyond 40 million, I mean, I'm sure they have a number in mind. If all goes well for Sony, the studio might have a new franchise on its hands. So it'll be really interesting to see where this ends up Monday or Tuesday in terms of ticket sales, right? And if anybody's seen it, let me know or call in, give us a quick review about it. But it got me thinking about the best Sony IP, and I want to kind of clarify that. 1 second. Jarvie says, I just got out of Uncharted. I think it's a faithful adaptation. I just think people can't get past Tom Holland as Peter Parker, but I thought he was perfect Nathan Drake. Okay, so Jarvie liked it. Brian E. saw it and liked it. Victor Lucas loves the game, says Random, but hates the movie. Jaffe looks like a breezy popcorn film. You goddamn right. Darnell says it's a bad movie, but fans will eat it up. Okay. Well, let's keep going, though. Okay, so here's the point, though. It got me thinking. All the brands that Sony PlayStation owns, what is actually the strongest? Oh, I know why. That got me thinking, and then there was a story that Amazon has signed up the guys who made the Sonic movie to also work on a movie for Life is Strange and Disco Elysium. And both of those actually make sense to me as, hey, that feels like a novel. Like when you hear about this studio has the rights to this novel, you're like, oh, yeah, I could see how that would make a good movie. Pretty much every video game translation that we've seen so far, I believe, feels to me more like it's got marketing written all over it. Even the Last of Us TV series, I'm not saying they don't look at it and say it'll make a great show, but it's clearly about the brand The Last of Us, or it's clearly about the brand Uncharted, or it's clearly about the brand Twisted Metal. It's like you don't hear the stories and go, oh my God, that would be a fucking amazing movie, right? You just don't. But when you hear Disco Elysium and you hear Life is Strange, you're like, yeah, okay. That actually would be really, really good. So when I say what is the strongest Sony brand, I don't mean which one do you like more, which one plays best, which one sold more. I mean at an IP level, which one can travel into more games that has more meat on the bones, and which one actually would allow for good movies, novels, books, and things like that. That's what I'm curious about. Let me give you a list of a couple of them, and you tell me which one you. I mean, I'm not going to put Spider-Man in there because obviously they don't own Spider-Man. Jokey says best IP is Last of Us. I would disagree. I'll tell you which one I think, but okay. We got God of War, Ghost of Tsushima, Horizon, Bloodborne, The Last of Us, Uncharted, Death Stranding, Demon Souls, okay, Shadow of the Colossus, Returnal, Gran Turismo, what? Ratchet and Clank, Concrete Genie, Detroit Become Human, Last Guardian, Knack, Second Son, whatever, what's the thing called? Infamous, Days Gone, Medieval, and Gravity Rush, okay? So, see, Ruddy Game says you can do the most with Last of Us. So many stories can be told. Okay, so coming to Shinnin. Fuck you, motherfuckers. Okay, let's take Destiny off the table for the moment. Just because I mean, you can put it on there if you want. I don't care. I don't know anything about it other than I played a little bit of it. I don't think we should be putting Spider-Man on there, though. Eternal says, I mean, Sony is very closely associated. They own the movie rights. Yeah, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about the game, what PlayStation has, right? But I'm with Brian King. Brian King, 100%, especially his first one. He says, Detroit Become Human and Death Stranding for film. I think that's absolutely right. I think if you're talking about what would make the best movie or best TV series in terms of raw material, even though I think Detroit Become Human is a very clunkily written script, I absolutely think that there is so much meat on the bone of that franchise that you could explore and play with and do things with it. If I heard that was picked up, it clearly feels like it would be picked up because a writer or a director or a studio said, oh, this is compelling. We can make a great story out of this. But if you pick up The Last of Us, I mean, it's a fucking zombie shooter. I know Ellie and Joel and his brother and Abby. I'm not saying there's not meat on the bone. I'm just saying that we've seen that ad nauseum in other books and movies and TV shows. And I'm sure this new one will be great. But it will be great because the execution of the idea, not because the idea itself, in my opinion. God of War, I would have agreed with you about God of War, before 2015. Because when we put out God of War, there wasn't there have been so many Greek god movies since then and Egyptian god movies since then, and now we're seeing more Norse stuff, like man fighting gods and Harryhausen and the big creatures and all that stuff. That no longer is missing from the diet of moviegoers. And in that, I think it's kind of, in a lot of ways, it's kind of like The Last of Us, right? Which is, if you like Kratos and Atreus and all that, sure. But if you could slot them into anything, but ultimately as a brand, it's kind of cliche at this point in terms of the material a screenwriter would have to work with versus Detroit. Puppeteer would be awesome. Puppeteer would be, maybe it would. I think so though. Puppeteer could be a great kids movie for sure. Death Stranding movie, different protagonist. I struggle with Death Stranding, Harold, only because I don't know if there's enough, it's a neat world, but is it really that rich of a world? It just feels very post-apocalyptic. I don't know. I mean, I could be wrong. I didn't finish it. I played it and I liked it. I definitely liked it. Last of Us is more story-driven than gameplay, says Zaf. The appeal came from the story and characters. Well, no, it didn't. I know what you're saying, and you're like, fuck you, Jeffy. I know. I don't mean you're wrong about what you're saying, but you're wrong about what you're saying in relation to how I'm defining it. Okay, the concept is what gets people in the door, right? It looks great, it animates great, it moves great. It's got action, it's got zombies. Fuck it, that's a cool commercial product I'm in. That's why it was greenlit. Marketing at Sony and product development at Sony didn't greenlight it because, oh my God, I think Joel is such a fascinating character. Let's greenlight that title. It doesn't matter to us if there's zombies or if it's set in space. We just want it to be a Joel story. That's not that, right? And so I'm just saying that for someone to pick up an IP and say, I want to make a movie out of that, you got to first worry about getting people in the door. Certainly if you attach a great actor to it. It's one of the reasons Uncharted will probably do pretty well this weekend, is because they attach stars to it. Without the stars, that's why Nathan Fillion, as much as you guys think he would be a great Drake, never got the call, because he can't open a movie. A Resistance franchise, I don't know anything. I know about Resistance, but I don't know about enough of Resistance to suggest that it has enough meat, but it could. It could. Demon Souls as a romantic comedy, yes, I absolutely love that. Metal Gear Solid could be the new James Bond. Well, you know, they're working on it. I'm hoping to have the director of it on the show pretty soon. I spoke with him 2 weeks ago. I'd love to have him on to talk about his vision for the movie that he can share, of course, because that one's a fascinating one because it's so weird. And part of its appeal is it's so fucking weird that how do you make a movie or a mainstream property out of something that is so batshit bizarre that if you remove that, you lose a lot of the appeal. I don't agree with that, Louis. Louis Love says Ghost Tsushima is a good one. Detroit is a good one-off movie. Detroit is a series. Ratchet is a series. I think Detroit works. Ghost is one of my favorite games ever, but it's very much like The Last of Us. It's very much like Uncharted. It's let's take a movie full of cliches and tropes that we love, and let's make a brilliant game out of it. But if you just simply reverse engineer it and make a movie out of a game that was intended to basically be riffing on a movie to begin with, or a genre, you just have a story about a guy who defends his island against an attacking enemy invasion, which is a compelling spine, but I don't think there's anything inherently like, whoa, that's so rich and interesting and we should totally get behind that, you know? Devon says, Infamous ride the superhero train to the bank. Thanks for the super chat, buddy. You wouldn't really be riding the superhero train, though. The reason I didn't like Infamous all that much was, you know, and I loved Ghost, but I love that developer. But Infamous, I'm like, I don't want to see a superhero in jeans and a fucking, you know, little fucking hat. Put him in a costume. I want super fucking heroes, man. But, you know, who knows? I mean, it felt more like Hancock to me, that movie with Will Smith. Interesting. Flamore says Death Stranding can make a great horror film. A Bridges Porter with busted gear can navigate a BT area with only his senses and understanding. That's cool. Yeah, and somebody else mentioned Until Dawn. You know, I love horror, and I remember really enjoying that game. I don't necessarily know if the protagonist in that game was that compelling, though. I don't even remember who it was. It's not like Five Nights at Freddy's or something where you're like, oh, or Slender Man. Wasn't it just some... I don't even remember who the bad guy was. Wasn't it one of their friends, or who the fuck knows? I mean, you might know, but... The counter to what you said is Ghost of Tsushima getting greenlit for a film before it was released. Sony had to have read the story and thought it would work well as a film. Ghost of Tsushima is not greenlit as a film. That's an absurd concept. There is no green light on the Ghost of Tsushima movie. And I challenge you to show me any different. Doug says Seaman starring Ron Jeremy. I like it. Sly Cooper could work. Interesting villain, says Master Millions, and stealth in movie. Yeah, I mean, it could work, but it's kind of like Ratchet, right? Ratchet is so cliche. Ratchet exists because all of the movies that came before it that inspired it exist. Similarly to Sly. I don't think there's anything inherently compelling about Sly Cooper. Not as a game, but I mean as a property. It's just another, it's wacky cartoon characters going on an adventure. Does everyone... okay. Destiny movies. That Donald Clinton I can't speak to because that I don't know enough about it. I played a little bit of it, and then that's kind of all I've done. But I'm sure you're right. I hear great things about the lore. It's Henri Bryce says, remember when Xbox was going to make TV shows with a bunch of their franchises? Everybody hated the idea. LOL, times change. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm still excited for the Halo TV show, at least to give it a shot. Ghost Tsushima 2 is going to bang. I agree. Okay. I'm still waiting for Zaf to hit me back with some data on the green light. I know that there is interest in making Ghost a movie, and I know that they've said, hey, let's put this director with it. But a green light means you put a link in the chat. Let me see it. I don't see it. A green light means that the movie has actually been budgeted and the studio or whoever is funding the movie has said, yes, there's a director, there's an actor, and they are moving ahead with shooting. That's what it means to get a green light. Is it in development? Sure. Let me just look it up. Ghost of Tsushima movie. Okay. Astrobot's just a character design, Morgan. I agree, it's a wonderful character design, but it's not. What else do you got, right? Okay, so the latest news comes from March, I think. Sony only released the game in 2020. It's been announced. In any event, it's super exciting. Yeah, I'm looking for something that's actually specific, like it has been greenlit. I only heard that they have a director and they're, they're talking about a cast, but I don't think it was greenlit. But put it in the Discord, man, because I can't get your links for some reason. Dennis, thank you for the big super chat, buddy. I appreciate it. He says, hey, the background of Resistance, the game. Russian Revolution failed. The Russians isolated themselves with wall from the world, became overrun by the Chimera virus. Chimera makes army and weapons and attacks Europe. So the Chimera are not aliens? I thought they were aliens. Are you saying the Chimera are Russians? I don't know about that. But I mean, I played it. I never finished any of them, but I enjoyed what I played. So okay. Anyway, there's that story. Let me check something for you guys real quick. I want to talk about a vehicle combat game that was, remember a little while back when they said, hey, we're making this game called Contraband. This is an Xbox exclusive. The team that is making Just Cause, Avalanche, is doing this. A little more information dropped on this game today. It's an Xbox exclusive published by Xbox. Contraband is officially billed as a co-op smuggler's paradise set in the fictional world of 1970s Bayonne. Whatever. There's new information from Jez Corden from Windows Central. He says he knows what the game is during a stream this week. Here's what he says. I got the design brief. It's sort of based entirely around vehicle combat. It's a very different type of game, he said. Basically, you plan smuggling runs and heist, and then you execute them. It's sort of like the idea is to not kill your opponents. The weapons revolve around disabling enemy vehicles, like taking out the tires and stuff, rather than going on massive killing sprees with bloodshed and all that kind of stuff. They're going for sort of a more tactical kind of action game where killing is seen as the last resort. So I bring this up. The reason it interests me is because, cool, maybe. I love Smuggler's Run, and I know this is a really talented group. But I bring it up only because I've seen this happen before. Certainly the last Twisted Metal did it. Evolve did it. A lot of times when developers try to spin multiplayer games and make them too interesting and too fresh, no one shows up. Most people tend to just play team deathmatch. And all of the weird modes and all of the weird strategies. Like I remember standing in front of the press for Twisted Metal 2012, and I was just gushing with all of the things that you could do in that game. Like you can, here's this strategy, and this car are built to work together in order to take down the missile from the sky. All of this deep tactical strategic thinking that we had put into this game. And it was fun to talk about. It was fun to play if you knew how to play it. But ultimately what ended up happening was everybody just picked it up and played it like deathmatch. And I really think that 90% 10% rule applies to multiplayer design as well, which is, 90% of your game needs to speak directly to what your audience just intuitively already wants to do and knows to do. And you spin it a little bit to keep it fresh, right? You add building to Battle Royale, you get Fortnite. You add portals to Halo, you get Splitgate or Slipgate, whatever the fuck it's called. It should be called Slipgate, but it's called Splitgate, which is stupid. But anyway, but when you start adding, like, remember that shooter that came out recently? There's been a lot of shooters where you can play with time, where it's like go in and then after you die, you come in at the point where your last character spawns. So you could end up having 10 versions of you on the field. Yeah, that's cool. It's wonderful to talk about. It's wonderful to show off great scenarios when it works the way it's designed to work. But if all you're doing is running in and shooting, which is what most people do, it's kind of a turnoff. So, I continue to go back to this idea that a lot of these multiplayer games really need early access. They really need minimal viable products more released digitally. Just put them out. They can look like shit. They don't cost any money. And just say, look, we're putting out a bunch of games all the time. Like it was when Uncharted did their Uncharted lab. And it was totally unfinished levels just to see what worked. It's like the fact that these guys have gone, unless they've play tested, and I don't mean amongst themselves, or people who understand the game, unless they've put this fresh in front of people who have never touched it, and those guys are having a hoot and hollering time when they play it, games like this need to be put into early access as soon as possible and killed or supported as soon as possible, because you'll know pretty fucking soon if this is too hard to play. And this may be brilliant, I don't fucking know. Limnisgate, yeah, Harold, that's another good one. Limnisgate was a brilliant concept, and it was a really cool fucking game. But it was way too much work to figure it out. And nobody stuck around. I imagine that game is dead. Although that's another game where basically, I think it's like you had 4 different lives and you spawned them at different times. And it was a shooter, a first-person shooter, but it played with like time awareness. It was just like, what? So, it's a little weird. It's a little weird that Contraband, here it is right here, would be this far in development, but they're not the only ones. I just think it's, Client says, I think there needs to be less multiplayer games. Almost every game is multiplayer these days. Well, it makes the most money. It's hard for a lot of people to look at that and not want some of that gold. Master says, do you think Sony making live service games is smart? Sure, I think you have to be in that business. I think it would not be smart unless they strike it rich multiple times on the 10 they're working on to walk away from all they do otherwise. But yeah, I think that's, it's again, look at the money MLB makes, MLB The Show, just on its microtransactions. It's hard to look at that and go, what did I see the other day? I'll tell you, I'll get back to that. I'll tell you in a second. Let me get Dennis's chat. Thank you, buddy. He says, Chimera are aliens, they were returned to life in Russia because of Tunguska meteorite, chimera infecting people with virus, turning them to hives. Yeah, you've lost me. I appreciate the super chat though, but yeah, I get it. There's definitely some good lore there. But yeah, this came out today. This was Activision talking about Ubisoft. Ubisoft cites new games' longer playing times as a sign of success. This goes back to your question about games as a service. Sorry about that. Mega publisher Ubisoft boasted Thursday that players of late 2021's Far Cry 6 spent more time in that game than they did in Far Cry 5. This is from Axios, okay? Ubisoft said Far Cry 6 players have spent 45% more time in the sequel than they did to Far Cry 5. It said, this is the important part, it said average playing time in Ubisoft's Riders Republic was up 60% compared to that studio's prior game. Now, in both cases, it's reported that rises in PRI, which stands for Player Recurring Investment, had rises, both games. How much money a player is spending on extra content for the game beyond the initial purchase. Ubisoft said PRI was up 30% between Far Cry 6 and 5. So yeah, these companies are raking in the cash when it works, and it becomes difficult, I imagine, for them to say, yeah, no thanks to that, right? Masochista says longer playtime equals success. That's why their games are filled with annoying quests. Yeah, but you can't blame them. You can't blame them because, listen, the company's thinking is this, according to the article. The longer people play, the more likely they are to spend more time in the game. While some fans and critics have complained about the bigger games, the company seems to have benefited. Listen to this. Yves Guillemot, the CEO, said Valhalla is already 130 hours long. It's repeatedly expanded with more free and paid content. It has passed the $1 billion consumer revenue mark in December. It's the first time an Assassin's Creed franchise game has made $1 billion and over. Okay, so, you know, it's interesting because the market gives you what the customers ask for. And I don't like it. I didn't even play Valhalla because I was like, I don't want to fucking be in a game that's long. But, you know, fucking shit, man. It makes bank. So I get why Sony's doing it. You know, people talked about God of War. I mean, think about that. God of War has made, I think they said they made $1 billion or $500 million. I don't remember how much they've made. Why they haven't put out DLC for God of War? I mean, maybe it's just not, it's in their best interest to get out the game for PS5, and so they probably will for Ragnarok. But why there's no DLC for God of War? That would have been fucking gangbusters, at least if you look at the Valhalla shit. So, I don't know. But that's an answer to your question, Masochista and the other guy. Okay. Fellas, that's the news for today. I can hang out and chat a little bit if you'd like, but that is the news for Gabbing Games for Friday, February, what do we call this day? February 18th. Do not forget, if you're interested in being a member, Pot+Popcorn comes tomorrow, 4:30 to 5 o'clock. We'll be watching, we know we're watching Kung Fu and Titties. And then we're either going to be watching Batman Ninja or we're going to be watching The Last Thing Mary Saw. Batman Ninja is self-explanatory. It's very cool looking. And the Last Thing Mary Saw apparently is a very dark and creepy horror movie. Jojo D says there are a few new games coming out in the next few months. Can you all buy it day one and complain about all the bugs so I can buy it cheaper later on with less bugs? I mean, that's what I'm doing with Dying Light 2, Joe. I mean, I've learned my lesson. What about Cyberpunk? I talked about Cyberpunk earlier. Cyberpunk, I love. My experience in Cyberpunk has been, you know, really fucking good so far. I think it's, hang on a second. I think it's great. I get that a lot of people are kind of like, you know, it seems to be very polarizing, but I'm an absolute fan. I'm an absolute fan of it. Eternal says the last thing Mary saw is really dark and a slow burn. Superpower says it's not the amount of hours, it's the overall gameplay quality of those hours spent. To you, and to me, but clearly for gamers, it's more than enough. I had one guy, I forget who it was talking to me about being happy that Horizon is so big. And he says, and I get this. I get why the normal gamer who doesn't obsess over this stuff like we do and talk about it and play everything, I get why the normal gamer goes, what he said to me was, he said, I play, I have a kid, I have to go work out, I have a job, I only get a couple hours a day. I like that Horizon is going to be my only game and it's going to last me for 2 to 3 months. I get that. I get why long matters to a lot of people. I get why if somebody hears, oh, Assassin's Creed Valhalla is 130 hours, they're like, shit, sign me up. Because they're not playing like 20 hours and then sleeping for 5 and getting up and doing it again. It's like a drip feed, Cyclown says, I've literally heard people complain about games being only 10 hours, which isn't bad, honestly. I would love shorter games, but I know that, and there are shorter games. I mean, that's the nice thing about games these days. There are a lot. And frankly, not all, there are a lot of variety. There's a lot of variety in terms of game length these days. But not all games. Like, I think Bloodborne would have suffered. I think Elden Ring would suffer if it's not a big, meaty game. But certain games, like I wish The Last of Us 2 was fucking over. I wish Ghost of Tsushima was fucking over. I wish Days Gone was fucking over. And I loved all 3 of those games. Some of my favorite games I've ever played. I don't think I'll ever finish them. It's just, I have too many things to do. But that's me. If that's your game and you're playing it for 2 months, okay, I get it. Truth Teller says, question, did Alan Becker think to release God of War 1 in OG Xbox? Why? It was funded by Sony. It was a first-party title. It would have never occurred to us to do anything but make it on, the goddamn cockadoodie PlayStation. Master Luke, hey, buddy, he says, would you ever want to get in the film industry? No, not at all. I will tell you, man, I reached a point where, like when I was a lot younger, Diego, I answered that at the top of the show, why Cyberpunk made me feel bad about myself. I'll time code this so you can see. But the gist of it, Diego, was there's a scene where I wanted to shoot up a nightclub, and I felt really bad. But there was a point where I was obsessed with getting my, quote, vision out to the world, whether it was Twisted or God of War or a movie I was writing trying to sell or a TV show I wrote and sold, anything. I wanted to get my expressions out there. And that was so important to me. And I don't mean that like I'm criticizing. That was one of the things that drove me. And I think it drives a lot of creatives, but that desire just doesn't drive me anymore. Like I watch a good movie now, or I watch a good TV show now, and I no longer walk out feeling, oh, I want to be able to give an audience that, or I'm not playing Bloodborne right now and going, oh, I have to get back in. I want to give them my things that have inspired me because I'm playing this. And I think that's a healthy thing to want when you're a creator. But I had it enough. I had that experience enough that it no longer drives me. So getting in the film business or anything creative would be very similar to getting into games, which is like, I've been there, done that. Joe says, I did not buy Cyberpunk because it had so many bugs. I have a PS5 now. It'll only cost you $25 to get it on the PS5. I have it on the PS5. I've been playing it and I love it. I absolutely love it. But I would read some of the dissenting opinions because some people on this very chat do not like it at all. But as I've said, it's a polarizing game. Some people think it's great and some people say, no thanks. But I love it, man. Matt says films and games seem like grueling professions. They are. And I think games are more grueling because they take longer to make. You end up not making the kind of money you make in movies, so you can't take off for. I remember reading a book about M. Night Shyamalan, and he had directed Sixth Sense, and I don't think he had directed. Maybe he did Sixth Sense and Unbreakable, which made its money back, but it wasn't a massive hit, I don't think. And the guy was living in a fucking mansion, and I'm like, because he made one hit movie. At that time, I had made like 3 hit games as a director and designer. I couldn't fucking afford a mansion. I couldn't even afford a house in Santa Monica. So I can tell you that they're both terribly grueling, but film, because of the payoff and because of the amount of hours you have to work, in terms of a film takes a couple of months. If you're a director, it might take a couple of years. But, you know, it's very different. But yeah, gaming developer programmers, says Dennis, are paid tons of money for a reason. They're not paid that kind of money, though. I was making more than pretty much anybody on that team. I think Shannon and I were always rightly so equal, but they're not making movie director money. That's for goddamn sure. At least, you know, big ticket movie directors. So, all right. That's it for Gabbing and Games, fellas. Thank you for hanging out with me. Thanks for joining me. If you're listening to the podcast, thank you for listening to the podcast. I appreciate it. I will be back tomorrow. Okay, let me answer that question real quick. I'm sorry. Master Luke says, can I ask if the stuff around Drawn to Death killed the passion or it was drained before then? Master Luke, I think, honestly, all it was... By the way, Joe, to get Cyberpunk, all you have to do is download... It's a free... You get 5 hours of it for free. So try it, you know. But, yeah, so Master Luke, what I will say is this. I think... Drawn to Death was more about me realizing that I really no longer connected with a large group of the fan base. And I don't think that's a bad thing. A lot of directors of any medium, a lot of creatives have their time, and I had my time. And I think it was a realization of it was putting a point on it. I was already feeling like maybe I'm done. And then I did that game and I loved it. And it reflected everything I love about games and creation. And it just totally got flamed by both critics and consumers for the most part. And I was like, it wasn't like I'm taking my toys and going home. It was like, oh, if the thing that I love the most, if the thing that I'm expressing myself in, that I believe in, connects in such a poor way, why would I want to keep doing this? So it certainly ushered it along. But it would have happened eventually anyway. So... I finally beat all the Chalice dungeons, says Spazbo. Oh my god, man. I still got to go back and finish the old Hunters. So, all right, fellas, that's it. Tomorrow, Pot and Popcorn, 4:30, 5 o'clock. I'm putting the poll up in just a minute to let the Cult of Calypso and higher members decide, because it's a tie right now between Batman and what Mary saw, the last thing Mary saw. I'll let you know that tomorrow morning what the winner is, and hopefully I'll see you then. If not, I will see you guys really soon. Be well, take it easy, and thank you so much. Thank you to the mods. Thank you for the super chats. Thank you guys for the great conversation and spending some time with me. As always, I very, very much appreciate it. I'll see you soon. Bye, guys. Maybe, if I can find the goddamn control. Un momento. All right, now I'm out. I'll see you guys later.